Welcome back to Switched to Linux. So today we want to talk a little bit about being frogs in a boiling pot of water. So you know the old saying, the old adage, if you take a frog and put it in hot water, he'll jump right out. But if you take a frog and put him in cold water and slowly turn up the heat, he will stay in there and boil himself to death. And this is an interesting perspective as we are moving more and more into this crazy data collection world. So it occurred to me how far this slip has gone, because if you didn't catch the video from yesterday, I did a Nextcloud and how to sync your Nextcloud contacts and calendars with an Android phone. So I just went out and bought a cheap $30 Android phone to do with that video, and just simply so that it was stock. So in theory, that set of instructions would work with any device that you could get. And of course, slightly modifying it based upon, do you use Lineage, or are you on Google stock, all the different things. And so a friend of mine, though, he's like, there's this project he's working on, and these people are like wanting to use Snapchat, and he could not get them off of Snapchat. So rather than link that crap up to his regular phone, he's like, I'm just going to pick up a phone just to throw Snapchat on, just so I can, communicate with these guys every day or so. And I was like, well, I still have this crappy little Android phone, so why don't I just go ahead and get that video out, and then I'll set the phone up for Snapchat for you. And so I did that. So I did the video, and then as the video was processing, I factory reset the phone and then created a Google account and all this. One of the funny things about Snapchat is it absolutely requires the full-on, full-fledged Google tracking analytics, everything about it. It will not run if you do not have the Play Store on your phone. In fact, it will not even run if you do not have the absolute latest version of the Play Store on your phone, which is very frightening, very scary thing. But as I'm setting this thing up, I reset the phone, and then I went through and I set it up, and I wanted to make it as privacy-centric. Like, realize those $30 phones from Walmart, they have 3 separate Facebook applications installed? I had to go and disable 3 separate Facebook applications. You had all sorts of other stuff that is all related to forms of data collection, and there's some things that some people have been talking about. You'll find some documentaries about this where some people are talking about, they're talking about how privacy is going to become a luxury of the wealthy. And so you can buy your way into privacy. So like I bought my Nexus 5X, and I wiped the phone and I installed Lineage on it. So there's no Google connections or services that are proprietary and things like that. And so the phone does a lot better job of preventing a lot of various data collection. But if you don't have the ability to get a phone that you can unlock the bootloader, or as is currently going on in our world, the inability to unlock a bootloader on these devices, you are completely locked into whatever they want to do on that device. And that is truly what we are seeing in that right now, where we're in this world that if you do not pay extra, if you do not do extra effort, if you do not do extra things, your data is simply getting collected. And as I'm setting this phone up, of course, it has, just like Windows 10, when you set up Windows 10, there's the huge get started. And this is the one everybody sees. But if you look, it's in very, very small font, almost matching the color of the background. Just visible enough to be quasi-legal is the ability to click the customize in Windows 10 and disable things before it even gets turned on. Well, the phone did the same thing. Very quickly, let's get started, but there is the customize button. So I click the customize button, and it's just like pages of, turn this off, turn this off, turn this off, turn this off. All of these things Google wanted to collect to even use the phone. Now, one of the things, of course, if you follow Louis Rossmann, a couple weeks ago, he found out that Google was literally recording everything. I actually found it interesting that setting was disabled by default. Definitely interesting. So something happened between then and now that setting is actually disabled. That basically where it would keep a log of everything you ever used on speech to text. That was actually disabled, and there was one other thing that was disabled. I forget what it was, but everything else was all enabled. And then, of course, you had to absolutely, completely, and totally agree to use data collection, or you can't use the browser. Now, I covered a ruling, or it was a new proposed law, I believe, and I can't remember if it was specific to just California, or if it was a federal proposed law. I can't remember. I was looking for the news clip again. I covered it on the news a few weeks back, and in that, they were basically trying to pass more laws to hold tech companies more accountable to data, including the ability to say, no, you cannot use my data for any purpose. I mean, even now, as I was looking up articles, this one here at the bottom, you'll see that we have this cookie statement. By further navigating the website, you agree to accept all of this. Now, this type of thing may be made illegal if this law were to pass. Now, what is this article about? This is a fascinating article because it turned out that Facebook, they did consider selling data. Remember, this is one of the big things with the Cambridge Analytica stuff. Zuckerberg's like, we do not sell data. It's true. They don't sell data. They license data. And that is infinitely more profitable for them. It's why when you go into a car dealership, they would love to get you on a lease because a lease is the most profitable way for them to operate a car. You pay them pretty much the value of the car, and then they get the car back at the end of the lease, and you got nothing. Tell me what world this is good? Well, Facebook did the same analysis. They did not. They actually looked at the possibility of selling data and determined it was more profitable for them to not sell data just so that they could lease the data instead. And that's what they do. That's their entire method and their methodology. And so we have gotten into this world right now where we are so used to all of these services. We are so used to all of these connections that we will just accept because, ooh, we got to use Snapchat. Ooh, we got to use Facebook. Ooh, we got to use, you name it thing. And you inherently have to agree to use the services. Now, the bigger kicker that I find is when you have a student in a school system and they don't want to agree to these services, but you have to use the service to get your work done. That's really bad. We've talked about that in other places. Let me consult my notes here. I think I'm missing something. So, of course, we talked about when you get these new devices, whether it's a Windows 10 system or whether it's an Android device, the vast get started now so I can get into the phone. That will just enable every bit of data collection possible. And I gotta say, when my original Nexus 5X phone battery blew up and I was debating, do I want to get another one of those or just pick up another phone from this local store? I actually went down to the Verizon store and picked up just a new Samsung phone. It's like, okay, I'm going to give this a try. I'm going to see if this works for me. Oh, Lord. I am so spoiled on this Lineage phone that doesn't do pop-ups and all sorts of background stuff and constant notifications, and every single time, literally it's like for the first day, every other hour, something's one about, ooh, we need to collect data. Ooh, it's like, I wanted to throw the thing against the wall. It's like, wow. And I ended up wiping the thing and taking it back to them. I'm like, we ain't using this. I can't use this at all. And that's the world we're going to, that all of these devices, and I set that one up without a lot of that stuff, and it still was able to get in there and grab all these things. But this is why our society is getting this way. I was so frustrated just setting up that little phone for somebody. I wanted to go out and start doing mean things. And it makes me so maybe this is why we're having so many of these bad events coming up lately. Applications we want to use or get force us to accept their permissions. There were some situations in one of the gaming companies recently where, the default is they opted to get rid of your usernames and share your real name with random people on the internet that you're playing a game with. That's insane. But you agreed to it because it was all buried inside of the terms and conditions that you didn't even look at. And very few of us spend time looking at those things. It's crazy to look at how much is out there. Anytime you get the updates, this is one of the things I talk about a lot where I don't always like the concept of always just pushing the updates as soon as they're available, because I want security updates. I don't want feature updates. But they're pushing out new feature updates wrapped up with the security updates. So if you don't want your system to get hacked, you got to accept the new features as well. And they add all these new data collection things and turn them on default. And you don't even know about it because you didn't read the terms and conditions. We already talked about cookies collecting data. At least with that, I can clear the cookies out at the end of the session, but, you know, we can do that. So basically, you get into this, and there's dizzy amounts of options. It takes a good hour or so to go through all the settings in Windows 10 and turn all that stuff off. Android's much the same. At least Windows 10 is somewhat organized. Android's settings have always been a mess, and they still are to this day a mess. Apple's definitely quite a bit better in that respect. It all boils down to we lack control, but our ultimate problem is that we have become addicted to what we're using. We have become addicted to the applications and the tools. It has become so easy, so convenient. We don't want to leave. We don't want to write shopping lists anymore. We don't want to remember our music anymore. We don't want to buy our CDs anymore. We can't go over to the CD player and pick up a CD and put it in. Oh, I got to stream it all. And I get it. There's definitely things that we want to accept some of the modern conveniences. But what they've done is they've gotten us so addicted to these things that we simply acquiesce in the name of our addiction in order to pass along all of the data, all of these options, all of these notifications, all of these things, and it drives us insane. But we've become so accustomed to it because we're not looking back. And I remember when I went from this Nexus to try that Samsung for a day, and I got another taste of that going from my Nexus to that Alcatel phone yesterday. It's like, this is insane. And this is an insane amount of crazy. We have boiled ourselves. We have completely acquiesced to these other companies. And I want you to have a take-home message today. Stop, turn off the tech, evaluate what you're giving them, think about these things clearly, and develop a strategy to get a lot of these types of things out of your life. I'm moving along on these Nextcloud tutorials, just trying to teach you how to build a Nextcloud and get Google out of your life. Nextcloud can replace Google, Dropbox, I mean, you name it. It can replace all that kind of stuff. These are important questions, important things to think about. Stop being a frog in the water. Jump out of that pot and take back some control from these companies. Do inconvenient things and say, I'm sorry, I'm just not using that company's data because I don't trust what the company's doing. Make these actual steps, make these actual plans. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. You can help support this channel by having a look at the links above or in the description down below.